This is my new key spool knitter that I mentioned in an earlier video about sock looms and the size of the tops of pins. And I have to say, I love this knitter. I'm sure you could, if you wanted to make one, I'm sure you could buy a round piece of wood. This is part of my tree, but you could buy a round piece of wood. Now, I want to show you, I always grab this one for bulky weight yarn and fairly thick strands. And in fact, the pad that these are on was made with this knitter, which is very similar to this one, which is a vintage. It's huge. It's a vintage rug knitter is how it's sold. I have the paper on there. It's hard to get it off with one hand. There have been a few of these on eBay. And the other one that's like this are the boy double-ended knitters. But those have more pegs. Now these each have 4 pegs and they're stationary. And the gauge is almost the same between the red one and the one with the keys. But you'll see the pin size on the top of the red one is really just made to keep the stitch on the peg. And it's even smaller on the corker. So this one, keeping that top of the pin and then the stitch very large, I'm so pleased with this. This is how it knits cotton. And I am now going to be able to braid this, and because it's more loose, it will give me a flatter braid, and I may be able to get it through one of my sewing machines to zigzag braids. So that I'm thrilled with. But I love this with worsted weight yarn. This is Laeom brand worsted weight acrylic bonbons in the package. And I have a project coming up where I'm going to be making a sweater in super bulky weight yarn on size 19 needles. And this, I'm gonna do this to the yarn instead of, the pattern calls for holding 3 or 4 yarn types together. I'm gonna do this with fisherman wool instead and make the sweater on size 19 needles after I use this spool knitter to make it super bulky. It'll be all one color as opposed to theirs, which is variegated. But I absolutely love the feel of this strand and how it knits with worsted weight yarn. So it is a success. And it's a very unusual looking spool knitter.